The smoke of battle still lingered in the air. The ground was black with burn marks where energy weapons had struck. Captain Daniel Ward moved carefully through the broken valley, his squad close behind. Their mission had been simple: scout the enemy's position and report back. But nothing on this alien world ever went according to plan. Daniel was a soldier of the Terran Defense Force, a man in his late 20s with sharp eyes and a steady hand. He had fought in many battles across the stars, but something about this world made him uneasy. The planet Valara was beautiful: blue skies, crystal rivers, and tall silver trees. But beneath that beauty, war had been eating away at it for years. "Stay alert," Daniel whispered through the comm in his helmet. His squad nodded silently, their boots crunching on broken stone. The silence around them was not natural. Birds had stopped singing. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the ambush came. Enemy fire lit up the valley, bright streaks of plasma flashing through the air. Daniel dove for cover behind a fallen tree, shouting for his squad to spread out. Explosions shook the ground and the sharp scent of ozone filled his lungs. "Return fire," he ordered. His soldiers answered with disciplined bursts, keeping the enemy pinned. But Daniel knew they were outnumbered. The hostile faction, rebels from the Valari Empire, fought fiercely. They did not care about peace talks or treaties. They only wanted chaos. Daniel's heart pounded as he leaned from cover, firing his rifle with calm precision. One rebel went down, then another. His squad managed to hold the line, but the crossfire trapped them in the valley. It was in that chaos that Daniel noticed something strange. Behind the enemy lines, a figure stumbled into view. Not a soldier, not a fighter, but a woman dressed in torn royal garments of shimmering silver and blue. Her long hair, glowing faintly with the natural light of her species, trailed behind her as she fell to her knees. Even from a distance, Daniel could see she was injured. "Sir?" one of his soldiers shouted. That's the Valari princess." Daniel blinked in shock. He had seen her image before in reports. Princess Arinya, heir to the Valari Empire. She was said to be untouchable, always surrounded by guards and ceremony. Yet here she was, alone and wounded in the middle of enemy fire. The rebels fired near her, but strangely, they did not finish her off. Perhaps they wanted her alive. Perhaps they wanted to use her as a weapon against her own people. Daniel felt a surge of instinct. He could not leave her there. He was a soldier, yes, but more than that, he was human. And a human soldier could never walk away from someone who needed help. "I'm going for her," Daniel said firmly. His squad protested immediately. "Sir, it's too dangerous." But Daniel was already moving. He dashed from cover, weaving through fire, his heart beating like a drum. Plasma shots screamed past him, some so close he could feel the heat against his armor. He ignored it all, eyes fixed on the Princess. When he reached her, she looked up at him with wide, luminous eyes. Pain and fear were written on her face, but there was also dignity, as if even now she refused to bow to despair. "Stay still," Daniel told her, crouching low. "I'll get you out of here." She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. You are human?" "Yes," Daniel answered, sliding his arm under her shoulders. "And right now, I'm your shield." With strength born from training and determination, he lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile, yet there was an aura of grace about her. The rebels shouted in anger, firing harder now, realizing their prize was being taken away. Daniel gritted his teeth and ran, carrying her across the open ground. His squad laid down heavy cover fire, giving him a chance. "Keep them off me," Daniel barked. Bolts of energy struck the ground around him, exploding dirt and stone into the air. His legs burned as he pushed himself faster, the princess clinging weakly to his chest. She closed her eyes, trusting him completely, though they had only just met. At last, Daniel slid behind cover where his squad waited. The soldiers stared in disbelief at the sight of the Valari princess in their captain's arms. "Sir, you actually did it," one whispered. Daniel set her down gently, checking her wounds. She had a deep cut on her arm and a burn across her side. Nothing immediately fatal, but she needed treatment soon. He tore a bandage from his kit and wrapped it around her injury with practiced hands. Her eyes fluttered open again. Why would you risk yourself for me? I am not human. I am not your duty. Daniel looked at her calmly. Because you're alive, and that's all the reason I need. For a long moment she simply stared at him, as if searching his face for deception. But all she found there was sincerity. Something softened in her expression. The squad regrouped quickly. They were still surrounded, and staying in the valley meant certain death. Daniel knew they needed to break through. "Lieutenant," he said, "mark a path to the ridge. We're getting out of here." "Yes, sir." As they moved, Daniel carried the princess once more. She protested weakly, saying she could walk, but her legs trembled when she tried. Daniel shook his head. "Save your strength. I'll get you to safety." The escape was brutal. The rebels chased them fiercely, determined not to lose their prize. But the humans fought with skill and unity, covering each other, pushing forward step by step. Daniel never let go of the princess, even when his arms ached. At one point, an explosion sent them tumbling into a ditch. Dust filled the air and Daniel shielded her with his body. When the smoke cleared, she looked up at him in silence. Their eyes met and something unspoken passed between them. Gratitude, respect, and a spark of something deeper, though neither could name it yet. Finally, after what felt like endless struggle, they reached the extraction point. A human dropship descended from the clouds, its engines roaring. Daniel and his squad climbed aboard, still under fire. The ramp closed, and for the first time that day, Daniel allowed himself to breathe. The princess lay on a stretcher, still weak but safe at last. As the ship lifted into the sky, she reached out, her hand brushing against his glove. "Thank you, Captain," she whispered. "I owe you my life." Daniel nodded, his voice steady. "No, you owe me nothing. Just live. That's all I ask." And as the stars opened above them, Princess Arenia of the Valari Empire closed her eyes, comforted by the knowledge that a human soldier had risked everything to save her. The human dropship soared high above the burning valley, carrying its wounded passengers away from the chaos below. Inside the dim cabin, soldiers sat in silence, their armor scorched, and their faces streaked with sweat. Every one of them was exhausted, but relief filled their eyes. They had survived another battle. Captain Daniel Ward sat near the medical cot where Princess Arenia rested. She looked pale under the soft light of the cabin, her silver-blue skin faintly glowing with the natural shimmer of her people. The medic had cleaned her wounds and placed a bandage across her side, but her strength was not yet restored. Her gaze flickered toward Daniel. "You risked much," she said quietly, her voice soft but steady. "Your people could have lost you today." Daniel shook his head. "That doesn't matter. What mattered was getting you out alive," one of the soldiers nearby whispered to another. But Daniel caught the words, "She's royalty," and he carried her like she was one of us. The dropship continued its climb, heading toward the orbiting human cruiser Resolute. As the engines hummed, Arenia's eyes grew heavy and she drifted into a restless sleep. Life aboard the human ship. The Resolute was a massive steel vessel, built for war, but shaped into a symbol of human resilience. When the dropship landed in the hangar, the crew rushed forward, surprised to see the Valari princess carried out by human soldiers. Whispers filled the corridors as Daniel escorted her to the medical bay. Doctors worked swiftly, scanning her injuries with advanced tools. Though the wounds were not fatal, they warned she would need several days of rest. When Daniel finally stepped away from the med bay, his commanding officer, Colonel Harris, intercepted him. "Ward," the colonel said, his tone hard. "You realize what you've done?" Daniel straightened. "I saved a life. You saved the Valari princess," Harris replied sharply. "Do you understand the storm this will bring? The Valari Empire will demand answers. Our own council will have questions. A human soldier carrying their heir through a battlefield? Some will see it as honor, others will see it as insult. Daniel met his commander's eyes firmly. With respect, sir, I don't care what they see. Leaving her behind would have been wrong. Harris studied him for a long moment before sighing. You've got courage, Captain. Sometimes too much of it. Stay close to her. If anything happens, it's on you now. Quiet conversations days passed, and Princess Arinya slowly regained her strength. The humans treated her with respect, but she noticed something unusual. They did not bow, nor did they address her with endless titles. They simply called her Princess or Arinya. At first it felt strange. In her world, no one dared speak so plainly to royalty. Yet here on this human ship she felt free. Daniel visited her often. He brought simple meals from the mess hall, explained human customs, and even answered her curious questions. You eat together in one place? She asked one evening, her head tilted slightly as she watched a tray of bread and fruit he carried. Yes, Daniel replied. The mess hall is where everyone gathers. Officers, soldiers, engineers, we all sit together. In Valari culture, Arinya said softly, nobles and soldiers never share meals. They remain apart. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe that's why your people and ours see the world differently. For us, unity matters more than titles. She studied him thoughtfully. His words struck something inside her. For so long she had lived surrounded by ceremony and distance. Rarely had she spoken so openly with anyone outside her circle. Yet this human soldier treated her not as a symbol, but as a person. Learning humanity one night, unable to sleep, Arinya walked into the observation deck of the cruiser. The great window revealed a sea of stars glittering like diamonds across endless black. Daniel was there already, standing quietly with his hands behind his back. You cannot rest either? He asked when he noticed her. She shook her head. Too many thoughts, he nodded. Same here. For a while they stood in silence, gazing at the stars. Then Arinya spoke, her voice low. You humans, you fight with such passion. Yet I see in your crew laughter, music, even joy in the midst of war. How can you live with such spirit when death surrounds you? Daniel considered the question carefully. Because if we don't, the war wins more than our lives. It takes our hope. And without hope, what are we fighting for? Her eyes softened. Hope, she repeated. My people speak of honor, of duty, of legacy, but rarely of hope. Daniel glanced at her. Maybe that's something we can teach. A bond. Growing stronger over the following days, Arinya found herself drawn to the human's way of life. She visited the training halls, watching soldiers spar with laughter despite bruises. She joined them during meals, listening to their stories of home. No one treated her as untouchable. They welcomed her with warmth. Daniel remained by her side whenever duty allowed. He guided her through the unfamiliar ship, explained the smallest details, and never once looked at her as though she were a burden. One evening, as they walked along the quiet corridor, Arinya spoke. In my world, captains kneel before me. They call me by 100 titles as though I am made of glass, yet you carried me through fire and treated me as if I were simply Arinya. Daniel looked at her with calm eyes. That's because you are Arinya. Titles don't matter when lives are at stake. You're someone worth protecting, not because of who you are, but because you're alive. Her chest tightened, with a strange warmth. It was more than gratitude. It was admiration. She had seen warriors in her empire, brave and proud, but none who spoke with such honesty. None who looked at her without fear or ambition. The warning. Their quiet bond did not go unnoticed. Some of the human officers whispered behind closed doors. The Valari princess spending so much time with a soldier? That could spark political trouble, and yet no one dared interrupt, for even the colonel knew Daniel had earned her trust. One day, a message arrived from the Valari Empire. A royal envoy demanded the return of Princess Arinya at once. The news spread quickly, filling the corridors with tension. Arinya overheard the whispers. She knew her people expected her to resume her royal duties, to stand before the council, as a symbol of Valari pride. But part of her hesitated. For the first time in her life, she had seen what it meant to be treated as an equal dot. That night, she sat across from Daniel in the observation deck again. Her voice trembled slightly. When I return, I will be surrounded by walls again. Walls of tradition, of politics, of endless expectation. But here with you, I felt free. Daniel's expression softened. Princess. Please, she interrupted, her eyes shining. Call me Arinya. Just Arinya. He hesitated, then nodded. Arinya. The sound of her name from his lips made her heart stir. For the first time, she realized what she truly admired about this human soldier. He had not only saved her life, he had shown her a new way of living. The cruiser Resolute floated in orbit above the shining world of Valara. From space, the planet looked peaceful, green continents and silver oceans gleaming like polished stone. But Daniel Ward knew the truth. Beneath that beauty, political, storms raged fiercer than any weapon. For days, the humans had sheltered Princess Arinya. She had walked their halls, shared their meals, and spoken openly with Daniel and his squad. Yet now, the time of decision had arrived. A fleet of Valari royal ships approached, demanding her return. The announcement echoed through the ship. Soldiers whispered in the corridors, uncertain whether the Valari would welcome them as friends or accuse them of dishonor. Even among the human officers, there was tension. Some believed Daniel had done the right thing by saving her. Others feared his actions would ignite conflict. Daniel stood in the strategy chamber as his commander, Colonel Harris, paced before a glowing map. The Valari envoy will board in 2 hours, the colonel said. Their council wants the princess back immediately. Daniel gave a sharp nod. She is their heir. Of course they want her returned. Harris stopped pacing and fixed his eyes on him. Ward, you need to understand something. Rumors are spreading. They say the princess has been spending too much time with you. Some Valari nobles already suspect there's more than gratitude between you. If this grows, it could tear the peace talks apart. Daniel's jaw tightened. With respect, sir, I did nothing wrong. I only protected her. I know that, Harris said firmly. But politics rarely cares about truth. It cares about appearances. Be careful. The royal envoy. When the Valari ships arrived, the Resolute trembled as their docking clamps connected. The Valari stepped aboard in flowing robes of silver and white, their tall figures graceful and proud. At their center was Lord Selric, a high counselor of the Valari Council, his eyes sharp as polished glass. Arinya greeted him with a formal bow, though her movements lacked the warmth she showed the humans. Lord Selric, she said, her voice controlled. I am safe, thanks to the humans who rescued me. Selric's gaze flicked toward Daniel, standing silently at her side. Yes, he said slowly. The council has heard of this soldier, Captain Ward. His tone was cool, almost dismissive. Daniel bowed slightly. I only did my duty. Selric's eyes narrowed. Duty to whom, I wonder? The tension in the room was heavy. Colonel Harris cleared his throat and stepped forward. The Terran Defense Force is honored to have saved the princess's life. We expect no reward, only peace between our peoples. Selric inclined his head politely, but his eyes lingered on Arinya. The council awaits your presence, princess. Much has happened during your absence. Whispers of suspicion later. As Arinya prepared to leave, she sought Daniel in the observation deck where they had often spoken. Stars glimmered outside, their cold light reflecting in her eyes. I fear what awaits me, she admitted. The council will ask questions. They will not like that I was rescued by humans, and they will not like that I feel closer to you than I should. Daniel stood still, his hands resting on the railing. You don't need to explain. I understand. No, she said quickly, her voice trembling. You do not understand. Valari nobles see emotions as weakness. If they suspect I admire a human soldier, they will treat it as betrayal. And yet, she paused, lowering her eyes. And yet I cannot deny what I feel. Daniel looked at her, his face calm though, his chest tightened. Arinya, I am just a soldier. I never wanted politics, I only wanted to do what was right. She met his eyes then, her expression soft but determined. And that is why I trust you more than any noble of my own people. The Council of Velara, the Grand Hall of the Velari Council, was carved from shining crystal, its pillars rising like frozen light. Daniel and Colonel Harris were permitted to stand at the edge of the chamber as guests, while Princess Arinya walked proudly to the center. The council members, dressed in flowing robes, sat in a great circle. Their voices rose in waves of debate as Selric presented his report. The princess was rescued by humans, he declared. Not Velari soldiers, not our fleets, but outsiders. Already whispers spread that our empire is weak, that we cannot even protect our air. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some nodded in agreement, others frowned with unease. Arinya lifted her chin. I was attacked by rebels who sought to use me as a weapon. These humans risked their lives to save mine. They did not ask for reward. They asked for nothing at all. Is that weakness or is it proof of their honor? The chamber fell quiet. Some nobles shifted uncomfortably. Lord Selric's eyes flashed. Honor, perhaps. Or perhaps it is human ambition hiding behind false modesty. This Captain Ward, did he not carry you in his arms? Did you not spend days in his company aboard their warship? Already rumors poison the air. What will our people think if their princess is seen so close to a human? Daniel stiffened at the words, but he remained silent. Arinya's voice rang clear. Let them think what they will. I owe my life to him. I will not be silent while his bravery is questioned. The council erupted again, voices rising in sharp argument. Some cried that she was right, that the humans had proven themselves allies. Others shouted that she had shamed her people, lowering herself before outsiders. Colonel Harris leaned close to Daniel and whispered, This is the storm I warned you about. Enemies in the shadows. As the council argued, news arrived that chilled the room. A rebel fleet had gathered on the far side of Velara's moon. Their message was clear. If the princess did not renounce all human influence, they would attack again. The chamber fell into shocked silence. Lord Selric seized the moment. You see, the humans bring division. Their presence has emboldened our enemies. We must distance ourselves from them at once. Arinya stood tall, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. No. The rebels attack because they fear change. They fear unity. They know that if Velari and humans stand together, their chaos will fail. Her words carried power, but the council remained divided. Some feared rebellion more than hope. Others admired her courage. Daniel, standing quietly at the edge, realized the truth. This was no longer only about her survival. It was about the future of two civilizations. Private resolve. That evening, after the stormy council session, Arinya found Daniel again in the Gardens of Crystal outside the hall. The air was cool, the stars above like silver fire. She stood before him, her hands trembling slightly. They will demand that I denounce you, she said softly. They will demand that I pretend you mean nothing to me. If I refuse, I risk rebellion. If I agree, I betray my heart. Daniel's voice was low but steady. Then do what your people need. Don't think of me. Her eyes filled with a quiet sadness. How can I not think of you? You showed me a world beyond duty, beyond titles. A world where life itself matters most. I cannot unsee it. And I cannot forget you. He looked at her in silence for a long moment, then finally said, Whatever happens, Arinya, remember this. I don't regret saving you. Not for 1 second, she smiled faintly through her sorrow. And I will never regret trusting you. The morning sun reflected off the silver towers of Velara's capital, casting long beams across the crystal streets. Princess Arinya walked with steady steps, her mind heavy with the events of the council. She had spent days defending Captain Daniel Ward's honor, arguing against nobles who could see only tradition and fear. Yet even as she spoke boldly before the council, her heart ached with uncertainty. Daniel walked beside her in the quiet moments, a silent support among the whispers and stares. Though he was human, and she was Valari royalty, their friendship had grown into something far more powerful, a bond neither could fully explain. The weight of expectation. The palace was alive with activity. Servants moved quickly, preparing for the return ceremonies that were meant to showcase the princess's safety. Nobles whispered in hushed tones, speculating on what her time with humans might mean. Many feared scandal, imagining how the citizens of Valara might perceive their princess, spending so much time with a soldier. Arinya felt the weight of her position pressing down on her. She knew that every word she spoke, every gesture she made would be dissected. Her heart wanted to reach for Daniel, to stand beside him openly, yet the world demanded she act with caution. Arinya, Daniel said softly as they walked through a private corridor. You don't have to face them alone. She shook her head, smiling faintly. I must. It is my duty. But it does not change how I feel. Daniel stopped, turning to her. And what is that feeling? She hesitated, then spoke with the courage she had shown in battle. I admire you more than anyone I have ever known. Not because you are human, not because you are a soldier, Manyo, but because you are honest, brave, and true. I trust you. The words hung between them, unspoken in full depth, but Daniel understood. The council prepares. The Valari Council reconvened to discuss the princess's future. Lord Selric presided, his face as cold and unyielding as the crystal pillars that surrounded him. The princess has spent considerable time under human protection, he stated. Some nobles suggest that her judgment may now be compromised. Others argue that this bond may be used to strengthen alliances. The question remains, how should we proceed? Arinya stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. I speak not only as your princess, but as someone who has seen the courage and honor of humans. Captain Daniel Ward saved my life. His bravery, his humility, and his honesty are unparalleled. I cannot deny what I have witnessed, nor can I ignore my respect and admiration for him. Gasps filled the chamber. Some nobles whispered that she had crossed a line. Others stared, unsure whether to admire her courage or fear its implications. Daniel remained at the edge of the room, silent but attentive. He had never sought recognition, and yet now the world itself seemed to wait for his response. The shock of a proposal. That evening, after the council session, Arinya asked to speak privately with Daniel. They walked together to the palace gardens, a place of quiet crystal pathways and soft glowing fountains. The air was cool, carrying the scent of alien flowers that bloomed only at night. Daniel looked at her, sensing the gravity of the moment. Princess, or Arinya, he said gently, whatever you wish to call me, what troubles you? She took a deep breath, her heart racing. Daniel, I cannot pretend my feelings are only respect. I care for you. More than I should, perhaps. More than protocol allows. And I wish to ask you something, though I know it may sound impossible. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly in curiosity, though his heart thumped in anticipation. You may ask anything. Arinya stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. Will you accept my hand in marriage? The words echoed through the garden. Daniel froze, stunned. Marriage? From a princess? To a human soldier? Never in his life had he imagined such a possibility. He began, searching for the right words. I never sought titles, power, or ceremony. I only wished to do what was right, and yet... He took a deep breath, meeting her gaze. I would be honored, but only if you truly wish this. Not because of duty, not because of politics, but because you want me. Her eyes glistened with tears of relief and joy. I do. I have seen who you are, Daniel. And I want to be with you. If the council allows it, if my people accept it, I will stand beside you not as a soldier, not as a princess, but as Arinya. Daniel nodded, his chest heavy with emotion. Then we face the future together. Whatever it brings, we face it as partners. Reactions across the Empire. The news of the princess's proposal spread faster than any battle report. Vallari citizens were divided, some in awe of her courage, some in shock at her choice to unite with a human. Scholars debated the historical implications. Soldiers whispered of honor and bravery. The humans aboard Resolute were astonished. They had always known Daniel to be noble, but never did they expect him to be asked to marry alien royalty. Some Vallari nobles opposed the idea openly, claiming it was impossible for their empire to accept such a union. Others quietly admired the princess's boldness and wondered if this could be the start of lasting peace between their peoples. Daniel, however, refused to let politics overshadow the moment. He focused only on Arinya, standing by her side as she faced the council and her people. A test of courage, the council requested that the proposal be formalized before all Vallari citizens. Arinya and Daniel agreed, seeing it not as a show of vanity, but as a demonstration that unity was stronger than fear. The ceremony was unlike anything Daniel had ever experienced. He wore a simple uniform, stripped of medals and titles, while Arinya wore her royal garb. They stood before the council, holding hands. Her voice rang clear. I choose him, not for his rank, not for his strength, but for his heart. Captain Daniel Ward has proven that courage and truth matter above all else. I ask the council to honor this choice, to honor the hope it brings. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, some nobles nodded. Others remained skeptical. Yet the act itself sent a message. This union was not a whim, but a symbol of trust and bravery. The first step toward unity. After the council's hesitant approval, Daniel and Arinya walked through the crystal gardens together. The citizens of Vallara watched silently, some with admiration, others with disbelief. For the first time in centuries, human and Vallari stood together not as soldiers and royalty, but as equals. Arinya squeezed Daniel's hand, her eyes bright. We have taken the first step, she said softly. It will not be easy. There will be whispers and there will be those who oppose us, but we have begun. Daniel smiled. Together then. No matter what comes next, we face it together. The calm. Before the storm that night, under the stars that reflected on the crystal fountains, they sat quietly, sharing a rare moment of peace. Arinya leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder, feeling the warmth and steady presence of the man she trusted more than anyone. Do you think the Empire will truly accept us? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Daniel shrugged gently. Acceptance takes time. But if we remain honest, brave, and true, perhaps they will. And even if some resist, we have each other. That is enough to face anything. Arinya smiled, a soft, genuine smile that illuminated her face. You saved my life once, she said. Now, you give me hope for a future I never imagined. Daniel tightened his hand around hers. And you give me a reason to fight not only as a soldier, but as someone who wants to protect what truly matters. Life, trust, and hope. As they sat together in silence, the stars above them shone brighter than ever, a quiet promise of the challenges and triumphs yet to come. End of Part 4. The proposal had been made. The council had begun to accept it, though not without hesitation. The citizens were abuzz with curiosity, admiration, and doubt. And in the middle of it all, two beings from different worlds stood together, united not by duty, but by courage, honesty, and love. The galaxy watched uncertain as Princess Arinya and Captain Daniel Ward prepared to step into a future that could either unite worlds or test their resolve in ways they could not yet imagine. The sky above Vallara glowed a soft pink as dawn broke over the crystal towers of the capital. For centuries, this planet had seen conflict, betrayal, and endless intrigue. Yet today felt different. Today, something new was taking root. A hope. That could change the fate of two civilizations. Princess Arinya stood on the balcony of her chamber, gazing at the horizon. Her thoughts were heavy, but her heart was determined. The council had granted their cautious approval of her engagement to Captain Daniel Ward, but many nobles and citizens still doubted. Even now, whispers of dissent swirled through the palace. She felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Daniel standing quietly beside her. His face was calm, yet his eyes held the deep focus she had come to trust. "Morning," he said softly. "You look ready," Arinya nodded. "Ready for what comes next, but I'm not afraid, Daniel. Not when you are with me." He smiled faintly. "I feel the same. But you must know, the choice we make now is bigger than us. It will affect not just the two of us, but our peoples, and perhaps the galaxy." She took a deep breath. "I understand, and I choose us. I choose life, hope, and the future we can build together." Challenges from within the day was filled with tense meetings. Valari nobles questioned the Union openly, citing tradition, duty, and loyalty. Some humans worried that political tensions could escalate into war if mismanaged. Daniel stood calmly, beside Arinya, offering support with his presence alone. His quiet strength was a constant reassurance. Lord Selric, ever critical, spoke sharply. "Princess, you risk your people's trust. Do you not fear rebellion? Do you not fear history, judging your decision as foolish?" Arinya lifted her chin, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "I fear nothing more than failing to act with courage. History will remember those who saved lives, who chose hope over fear. Captain Ward saved my life. That alone proves his honor. That alone proves he is worthy of trust." Selric's eyes flickered, uncertain as murmurs passed through the council. Some nobles began to nod in agreement, inspired by her bravery and honesty. Daniel remained silent, but his thoughts raced. He had never wanted power or titles, yet now he held the hopes of two worlds in his hands. Every decision mattered, every word mattered, and he had to be strong, not for himself, but for Arinya and the people they sought to unite. The rebel threats. The council deliberated. Urgent news arrived. Rebel forces on the outskirts of Valara had mobilized. They threatened to attack the capital if the princess continued to align with humans. Their message was clear: reject this union, or face destruction. The bow. Tension in the council chamber escalated. Panic and fear rippled through the nobles. Some called for immediate military action. Others urged diplomacy. Daniel stepped forward, addressing the council for the first time. "We cannot allow fear to dictate our future. The rebels attack because they fear unity. If we respond with courage, strategy, and honesty, we can prevent bloodshed. But we cannot abandon hope. We cannot abandon each other." Arinya watched him speak, admiration shining in her eyes. He did not command armies or issue threats. He spoke of trust, unity, and courage. His words were simple, yet they carried power. Beyond any weapon. The council murmured among themselves, some nodding, others frowning. Slowly the tide began to turn. The decision. That evening, Princess Arinya and Captain Daniel Ward met privately in the palace gardens. The sky was painted with stars, their light reflecting on the crystal fountains. "We must be honest," Arinya said softly. "Some of our people will never accept this union. Some may even rise against it. Are you ready for that?" Daniel took her hands in his, holding them firmly. "I am ready, Arinya. Not because it will be easy, but because it is right. We cannot lead through fear. We lead through courage, trust, and unity. If that makes us unpopular, so be it. I will stand by you always." Her heart swelled at his words. "Then we do this together. Not as princess and soldier, not as Valari and human, but as partners, as equals." He nodded. "Exactly. Together." They shared a quiet moment, the gravity of their choice settling over them. It was more than a personal decision. It was a commitment to a future where both their peoples could thrive together, even against doubt and danger. The wedding ceremony. Weeks later, the palace was alive with anticipation. Citizens of Valara, Human representatives and dignitaries from nearby worlds gathered to witness the union. The ceremony was unlike any the galaxy had seen. A human soldier standing beside a Valari princess, united by courage, honesty, and hope. Arinya walked down the crystal aisle, her gown shimmering under the sunlight. Daniel stood at the altar, his uniform simple but dignified. Their eyes met, and in that moment the doubts, the whispers, and the fear seemed to fade. Only trust, courage, and love remained. The officiant, a respected elder from the Valari Council, spoke. Today we witness not only a union of hearts but a union of worlds. May this act of courage inspire generations to come. Arinya turned to Daniel, her voice steady. Do you, Daniel Ward, accept me, Arinya, as your partner? Not because of title or duty, but because of trust, respect, and love. I do, Daniel replied, his voice clear and unwavering. And do you, Arinya, accept Daniel not as a soldier but as a partner, as a friend, and as someone who will share the future with you? I do, she said, smiling. The crowd erupted, in applause, some in admiration, others in disbelief. Yet the moment was theirs, pure, honest, and powerful. A symbol of hope, the wedding became a symbol across the galaxy. Stories spread of a human soldier who had risked everything to save a princess, and of a princess who had chosen courage and love over fear and tradition. Leaders of nearby worlds took notice, seeing that unity and honesty could overcome centuries of distrust. Citizens of Valara began to hope for a future where humans and Valari could live side by side, not as strangers or enemies, but as partners. Daniel and Arinya, now husband and wife, walked together through the gardens after the ceremony. They spoke quietly, hand in hand, their hearts full of gratitude and determination. We did it, Arinya said softly. We faced fear, politics, and doubt, and we still stand together. Daniel nodded. Yes, and this is just the beginning. We have work to do, for our peoples, for peace, and for hope. Arinya smiled, feeling stronger than ever. Then let us face it together. Whatever comes, we will be united. A future built on courage. In the following months, Daniel and Arinya worked tirelessly to strengthen ties between humans and Valari. Schools and training programs were established, sharing knowledge and culture. Trade routes opened, allowing both civilizations to prosper. The rebel threat faded as citizens saw the benefits of unity. Fear and mistrust slowly gave way to respect, and respect grew into admiration. Though challenges remained, one truth became clear. When courage, honesty, and compassion guide decisions, even the most impossible barriers can be broken. And at the center of this change stood a human soldier and a Valari princess, proof that humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the ability to trust, to act bravely, and to love. The end. As the twin suns of Valara set, Daniel and Arinya stood together on the balcony of their palace. Below them the city glowed in quiet celebration, reflecting a future born of courage and hope. Daniel squeezed her hand. This is our home now. Our future. Arinya leaned close. Yes, and together, we will protect it. They watched the stars appear, stretching across the sky, a reminder that no matter the challenges, their choice, humanity, trust, and love, had shaped a brighter tomorrow. And thus, the story of the human soldier and the alien princess became legend, a tale of courage, hope, and the extraordinary strength of humanity.